I'm a living man, which means I'm better than you, woman that's learned things.
Yeah.
That's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Gibbs it to me straight.
Welcome back to Gibbs It To Me Straight. This is episode 8. I am Ashley J. Williams, and I am joined by my co-host, Robby Thesword. How are you today, Robby?
Oh my goodness, I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Well, I'm recovering from the flu. I had the flu
Yeah.
this past week, and having the flu sort of reminds you of your mortality. So
Yeah.
I'm coming back from the dead, but here I am, and we're here for another episode. We've been knocking them out pretty good here. This is our third episode, I think, in 2 weeks.
I believe so. It's something along those lines. We took a little bit of a hiatus trying to figure some stuff out, and now that we found the groove, we're really finding a good rhythm.
We're just cranking them out. So normally what I do before every episode is I try to send us hate mail, so we at least have one instance of hate mail for the episode. But I had the flu and I was unable to do that. My body was sending me hate mail. But did we receive any other feedback from any listeners on any social media?
Well, there's one that I wanted to mention, which is that one of our very kind and faithful listeners sent us a sort of retort in advance of an episode that we haven't covered yet. So they sent us some hate mail defending the show before we've been able to get to it, so that we would have it whenever we got to the episode. It's not this episode, unfortunately, but whenever we get to that episode, we will, of course, read it.
So our faithful listener has such faith in our ability to be awful that they are sending us hate mail in anticipation of us being awful.
Oh, I mean, I also got another one, although this one seems fairly generic. And it says security alert, new sign-in.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that may be for the North Koreans. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I confirmed it, so I think it might have been from me, but you never know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is about the level of interaction we're getting from our listeners. One instance of feedback we're getting from someone who is convinced that we're going to be so bad in the future that they went ahead and pre-scheduled their hate mail, and the other one was just an automated feedback. So that's the level.
It was so frightened that I was even signing into the Gmail account that I run this podcast from, that it was like, oh God, please don't. Yeah, please. You don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, you really don't have to do this. Like AI at a point now has become discriminating enough that it knows that it recognizes the hate crime. And how are our numbers looking?
We're looking pretty good. I think we're either right at 120 downloads total for all of 7 episodes, and somewhere at an average of, I think it was 17 or 18 downloads per episode on an average.
That's remarkable.
I think the episode 1 is still the most downloaded, which I'm kind of shocked by. Although I'm a little bit saddened because it's the most downloaded, so it seems like, does that mean that people are listening to the first one and then going, I don't know. As for the YouTube stuff, I've not looked at it in a little while, but I remember whenever I looked at the stats for the most recent episode, I was shocked by, within a day or two, it had like 3 views and none of them were from me just checking on the episode.
And didn't you say we have a lot of listeners from, like, I don't know, Romania or Kamchatka or something weird? I can't remember.
I haven't heard Kamchatka since I played Risk.
Well, that's the only reason I know it exists.
It's there's quite a few that I believe we have in Indonesia and Malaysia. There were quite a few downloads that I saw from there. Yeah,
that's fascinating.
As well as in the British Isles, not the UK necessarily, but the British Isles as a whole. A few in Brazil. I think that might have been the specific one. There were a few in a few different places in Brazil. That could be people using VPNs to download their podcasts. But you know what? I don't care. I'm going to let wherever the map says they're from be where they're from.
Yeah, and there's no way you can figure it out otherwise, right? But it would be cool if we're not going to become a sensation here in the United States. It would be cool if we did a David Hasselhoff and became really big somewhere else, like really big in Europe, right? We should probably explain to any listeners who are not familiar with the podcast, who are still here this far into the podcast, which I doubt there's anyone like that. But if there is anyone who doesn't know what we're all about, maybe you can explain why we're here and what we're doing.
So NCIS is a pretty consistent cultural phenomenon. Whenever I turned on my TV this morning, there was a big banner ad on a piece of technology I own and purchased. for the NCIS Tony and Ziva show. That's how big this phenomenon is. 22 years on, there are characters, there are shows still running with these characters in them. And I've had this idea for a while to talk about how stupid this show is. And we finally, earlier this year, were able to pull all of that together. And there's so much we've been able to glean from these 6 episodes of NCIS we've looked at so far. Whether is this show meant to be propaganda? Does it know if it's really bad at being propaganda? Is Gibbs kind of bi? Is Tony a lackey? Is he, as one of our listeners said in an email, a white male DEI hire? There's more probing questions than this. There are, as we'll get later on into the show. But the ultimate question that we're asking is, why does this show exist and what does it think it's accomplishing?
Yeah, and a corollary to that is I don't have the same relationship with the show that you have. I've never seen it. And at this point, 7 episodes in, we have 8 episodes that we've recorded, but we've covered 7 episodes, or 6 episodes. Right? This is our 7th NCIS episode.
Yes.
You're right. It is stupid. Not having had any introduction to this show, it's pretty dumb. I agree with you. It is pretty dumb. So because you've convinced me of that, from here on out, we're going to be exploring how dumb it is, right?
Yeah. This one is, I always sort of give a little bit of a preface on my opinion. Last episodes, I was a little bit more on the bright side of. I was following the advice of the life of Brian. But this episode, my God, I kind of can't believe this one.
Wow.
Just from front to back, I cannot believe it.
Yeah, and last episode was serviceable as a procedural goes. It was probably the least bad episode that we've covered. That is a very low bar, because the previous 5 episodes prior to that some of them were just catastrophically stupid. You had to cut out long, pregnant pauses where I just was trying to find the right words to encapsulate how dumb I thought this was. And then last episode was a little bit of a reprieve. It was not great, but it wasn't as horrible as some of the previous episodes. You're saying this one, we're in for a ride for this next one.
I think there's some jumps made in this episode that I cannot wait to get your reaction to. Yeah. Before we do that, however, we have to play America's favorite game, Freaky Agent Bundy, which the explanation for gets longer every single time. So Freaky Agent Bundy is an audio guessing game we play. I choose one clip from either Freaky Friday, this week's episode of NCIS, or from The Deliberate Stranger, a TV movie from the 1980s where Mark Harmon played Ted Bundy.
Right, he is the through line. Right, yeah. So he was in Freaky Friday. Yes. He is the star of NCIS, and one of his earliest roles was as Ted Bundy. Very, very daring choice there, Mark.
And we also got a comment from a listener saying that at some point we could incorporate The West Wing, because apparently he was in a few episodes of The West Wing as well.
Okay. Right. But today is Freaky Friday, NCIS, and Ted Bundy.
That is correct. Those are our options. We have not exhausted them yet.
Friend, Dick Larson. He's doing a story on the Lake Sammamish murders. Says it's tough, though, because nobody knows anything.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, listen, I gotta hit the books. Talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, that's the end of the clip.
All right, I'm going to guess that it's Ted Bundy. My guess.
Now, what makes you say that?
Something to do about murder. And also, he sounds a little younger. So I've noticed that as people age, their voices deepen a little bit. He just sounded a little bit younger in that. And the Ted Bundy, it was a TV movie, right? From it was 1985. Was it that far back?
I think so.
I think so. He sounds like a young man. And so did I guess correctly?
You're correct. Yeah, you're right.
Good. Okay, so I'm making up for my previous, because I had done pretty well there for a bit, then I missed out a couple of times, and I'm back in my winning streak. Yep.
I think you're at 5-2. I think that's right.
That's pretty good. I'll take those odds.
Yeah.
Here's that the title of this episode is Sub Rosa.
That's right. This episode is called Sub Rosa.
Sub Rosa. Okay. So
I I barely know what it means in the context of the episode.
All right, so I see you have clip one and some notes here, and so this is giving me a little insight into how you do this as well. So you watch the episode,
Mm-hmm.
you take some note, and it's a lot of work. I've commended you in the past on how much work this is.
Yeah, thank you. A few years ago, I just stopped regularly watching television. Over the past, 4 or 5 years, I've watched maybe 2 full seasons of a show, by myself without the influence of another person, and I could tell you what they were. So this gives me and demands of me that I watch something and pay attention to it and critically think about it, which is, if nothing else, good for my brain. Whether or not the content of the show is good for my brain is an entirely other question.
It's not this show at least. I have the advantage of I watch shows with my wife. I think the last show that we watched in its entirety was Wednesday. And
okay.
Oh yeah, we watched Andor before that, which is a wonderful show. But there's something very appealing about just watching a show and sharing it with someone, and then just picking it apart, tearing it apart.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Let's begin.
Yeah.
So this episode starts in, I wouldn't say this is peak cold open fashion, but it starts with just what would 2 guys be doing if they worked together and saw one another fairly frequently? I'm going to play basically most of the cold open just in its entirety, and then I'll describe what happens if it's not clear after.
I cannot believe they lost.
I can't believe you gave me 6 points. So what do you got for me today?
Just these drums here.
Alrighty, sweet cheeks.
Oh man, I'm gonna be cleaning up this mess for days.
What the hell is that?
Wow. Okay. I was unable to see the video on that, but I could hear all the audio, which is fine because that's what the listeners are with. So it just sounded cacophonous. It sounded chaotic, and I'm just assuming that underneath, at the end of all that chaos, a body was revealed.
That is correct. Yeah. Yes, at the end. So I'll describe now. I think you should be able to see the video on your screen.
Yeah,
now.
I can see it now. Yeah.
So I went into full view and it didn't change that for some reason.
Oh,
but
yeah, I see the body. It's in a 50-gallon drum.
Yeah. A man just driving a truck up as he's laughing walks up to another guy who's holding out a bill of money, and then they make a vague sports comment about one another or about something that happened. Just I can't believe they lost. I can't believe this other thing. And then he just goes, okay, what do you have for me to do today? And then the guy waddles over to a forklift, puts these 2 things that are already set up on there, it was already on a pallet. He couldn't have had it on the forklift already. I don't know. He puts it on there, and then he doesn't back up enough on the forklift. And so as he's pulling away and then does something with the pallets, it tips over one of the chemical bottles, one of these huge 50-gallon drums of corrosive chemicals.
Yeah.
And it spills the top off, and it splashes all over the concrete on the ground, and it reveals a body. And then we cut to theme song.
It's a fairly. I'm looking at the image now. So thanks for letting that enter my dreamscape tonight. And it's a gruesome image of a torso half kind of hanging out of this 50-gallon drum that presumably, as you said, contains corrosive chemicals. So just piecing it together, there was some skullduggery that happened off camera, and there was a body that resulted, and someone thought that they could hide the evidence by dissolving it in acid, perhaps. One of these
an unbelievable amount of skullduggery, if we're being honest. Yes. After the theme song, we cut to Tony sitting at his desk. For whatever reason, he is in a full suit and tie, which I can't remember if this is a thing we've seen before, but he's wearing just a full suit and tie. And he's on the phone, and we don't really know who he's saying to, but he says over the phone, the best thing that you could do, Special Agent McGee, is nothing. And this is our first sort of name drop for a new character. For a new regular character on the series.
Was that Special Agent Nikki? Is that how I heard that? McGee. Got it. Okay, cool.
Yes. I'll have a fun fact about him that I'll tell you at the end of the episode.
Is it a fun fact, or in the context of this, what we're doing, is it kind kind of an unfun fact.
It's not, whatever your instincts are, it's not that bad.
Okay.
But it is just like, oh, okay. It's one of those. So Kate walks in with all of her stuff, and Tony immediately is like, wow, you look like shit.
Okay.
And she says, "What?" Well, he doesn't say that. He says, "You look like hell." And she's like, "What a nice way to talk to a woman." And then she says, "I think that she's been sick." And Tony goes, "Don't sit next to me in the truck. I don't want you getting me sick." She's like, "Well, at least there's a benefit to having a cold." And then Tony, for some reason, is offended by this. Like, she's saying that she's gonna do as he's asking. Why is that a thing to be offended by?
White male fragility.
Okay, you know what?
Yeah.
God, I should have known. Gibbs then, interrupts their not flirting by just walking through and is like, "Hey, are you two idiots ready to go yet?" And then, and I didn't clip this because I was so profoundly irritated by it, that Kate, whenever she's like holding her purse or getting ready to leave, knocks over Gibbs' coffee. And everyone in the room, and by everyone I mean Gibbs and Kate, act as if she has just dropped a baby.
His coffee is very important to him, I think. I think that's an emerging theme in this show.
It certainly seems like it, because right after that, right as the scene ends, Tony just looks at Kate and is like, "I've never experienced Gibbs without his morning coffee. We're in uncharted territory." Like, he's an adult. He's a 50-year-old man. And also, he works murder investigations. And apparently he's picky about his coffee because Kate says, "Oh, I'll get you some from down the hall." And he says, "That's not coffee." Like, so where is he getting this from? Is there a different coffee maker in the building that he wants to get it from instead? I have absolutely no idea what his problem is, but like, they're gonna go all the way to Norfolk. Why can't they stop for coffee on the way?
Yeah. I assume that all the great detectives are idiosyncratic, and so I guess his idiosyncratic behavior is his coffee. But it doesn't seem very useful for the episode, and it doesn't add a lot to his character other than to reaffirm that he's a little high maintenance.
I guess so.
But can I ask, going back a little bit, when she entered the room and he said, "You look like hell," does she look okay? Is there some indicate? Seems like there's a subplot there. Has she been through something, or is he just being insensitive to her?
I think he's just being sort of insensitive. She's not wearing a nice pressed blazer. She's just wearing like business slacks and a nice top, and I don't know, maybe her hair is a little bit tousled, but like, she doesn't really look that bad. And she's been styled for television, so she doesn't look bad.
Right, yeah. And does that indicate that wherever they're going, and because he's in a suit, what about Tony? Is he like all dressed up as well?
Yeah, Tony's just in a full business suit, but Gibbs is almost never. Gibbs is pretty usually in a suit jacket with a button up and then a white t-shirt visible beneath it.
So it sounds like wherever they're going, they're expected to present formally, and she's not following that expectation.
Well, no, I have no idea why Tony's wearing a suit.
Oh, okay. And Gibbs also is wearing a suit. Is that right?
It's pretty close. He's not wearing a tie. Like, okay. Tony is wearing a full tie.
Yeah.
I have no idea for the reason of this.
Okay.
So they all leave on the truck to go to Norfolk, because apparently the opening scene we saw, because it's NCIS, happened on a naval base.
Of course.
And this is where we get our second clip.
Yeah, there are multiple purposes for hydrofluoric acid on a naval base. It's most commonly used to surface clean metal. It's highly corrosive, readily penetrates human skin, destroying soft tissue and decalcifying bone.
That was our second clip.
Yep. So he's framed around it's not the Werner weapon, but it's the means by which the murderer thought that they could get away with disposing of the body.
Mm-hmm,
so we now know it's hydrochloric acid, and there's a couple of gruesome scenes of what appears to be a decomposed and acidified body.
Yeah, corroded,
yep.
I guess.
Yeah, corroded. Yep. So it's a very gruesome. So it'll hook you in if you're at home with nothing to do and you see that on the screen. That's definitely going to hook you into the show.
Yeah. We get a few tiny more details. We saw, for a moment there, this new agent who we've not seen before who's wearing a mask, which is probably a good idea because a huge amount of hydrofluoric acid has been spilled all over the place. So there's probably a fair amount of fumes.
Yeah.
But they play this off as being like, wow, the new guy's queasy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so the new guy is McGee?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I think he's stationed in Norfolk. We don't really know what his position is because he's just sort of floating around in places. But he's is the special agent in that area that called them in. So, but he is apparently very new. That is the feeling we're getting.
Oh, I got excited for a moment. I thought that they were introducing a new team member, but this is a guest star for the episode.
For right now, it seems like they are intending as a guest star, but he will be. He will be a continuing team member.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Welcome to the family.
After Ducky goes on his diatribe, he looks at the body a few more times and he's just like, it looks like this guy probably hasn't been in this drum of acid for longer than 24 to 36 hours, because otherwise his body would be more broken down.
Okay.
And Gibbs, after Ducky says that, like, there's a gross sound effect where McGee is like gagging, and Gibbs tells Tony to just like, can you get him out of here, please, so I don't have to worry about him throwing up everywhere.
Well, which is a very natural reaction to seeing a body in that state, but okay. I'm sympathetic.
Then they finally, Gibbs and Ducky start looking at the body a little more closely. Gibbs asks Ducky if he's, quote, wearing Cracker Jacks.
Okay. He's not.
I was hoping that you would know what that meant, but I'm not.
Yeah, so Cracker Jack, the Cracker Jack box, the icon, the mascot of Cracker Jack's guy in a sailor suit. That style of uniform is called, they're called, informally called Cracker Jack. With the ribbon in the front tied off and the white sailor hat. But so Cracker Jacks, we would informally refer to them as the dark blue, navy blue dress uniform of the enlisted.
Okay.
But I just saw the scene, and Ducky is just dressed business casual, so I don't understand why he would say that.
Oh, well, Ducky is telling Gibbs, after Gibbs asks if the body is wearing Cracker Jacks, and Ducky's just like, yeah, it looks like he's an enlisted guy.
Oh, they're referring to the body. I got you.
Yes. Right. After that, Tony and McGee sort of get pulled aside, and McGee pulls off his mask and he says, I've heard stories about Special Agent Gibbs. And Tony says, only half of them are true. The problem is, you gotta know which half. Talking about him like he's a cryptid or something, instead of just a moderately abusive authority figure.
But it does imply that Gibbs has a reputation in his professional circle.
Definitely. And we're going to see that in this episode a multitude of times. So they're on the military base, and they talk to... Yes, so they're on the military base. Gibbs is walking past where they're doing the murder investigation and is just talking to, I guess, just some sort of supervising officer for the scene. They walk to the entrance of the base, and there is a small circle of protesters who are all holding up signs and chanting. They're all holding up signs that say various things about sonar and dead whales.
Yeah, it's a problem, apparently. Yeah, it's an incredible amount of energy that they're producing. I mean, it has to propagate through water, and then it has to be strong enough so that the reflection propagates back. So, yeah, an enormous amount of energy, and it can't be good for anyone around it, any living creature near it.
Yeah, I think the figure that I saw whenever I saw it explained is that the sound, in terms of just how loud it is 150 decibels.
Yeah.
Which I think is enough to rupture most of your organs.
Oh, yeah, it's not good.
There's a bunch of people, and Gibbs and this officer are sort of just looking out on this crowd of what literally could not be more than 10 people.
Dirty hippies.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly all young people, too. But Gibbs just looks at them and goes, have you tried shooting them?
Yeah.
And the officer says, I've tried.
They just keep coming back.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Just patched up. Still on the dock, after they've packed everything up, Tony, and it's nighttime at this point, Tony tells McGee that Gibbs wants NCIS in control of the crime scene and, doesn't want it touched. And McGee at first is like, okay, I'll let everybody know. And then Tony's like, no. Gibbs wants NCIS to have, consistent supervision of the crime scene, just in case. And McGee is like, okay, I'll wait until you send somebody else then. Like, I'll wait for somebody to send a relief. And then Tony and Kate walk off, and Tony's got a smirk on his face. And it's clearly because Tony just lied.
Oh.
That was never in order. And Tony's just telling this new person, he's just lying to them because he's allowed to.
Okay, all right. So,
yeah.
in the span of about 5 minutes, we've gone from, hey, let's shoot people who are exercising their First Amendment rights, to, hey, I'm going to lie about a law enforcement. So basically, he's abusing his power. essentially.
Absolutely. He will continue.
Right.
He will continue doing so.
Right. So there's multiple abuses of power here just within the past couple of scenes. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Kate is there. And so she knows Tony's lying. So she could be like, McGee, you don't have to do that. You can go home. Tony's lying. He's being a dick. You can go home. And she just doesn't.
Well, she's becoming one of the boys.
But then Kate, whenever she accuses Tony of abusing his power, she's like, this isn't pledge week. Like, we're not in a frat.
Yeah.
And Tony's only reply to that is, I bet you weren't fun in college. And then she says, oh, I totally was.
Ugh, the writing is just terrible.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back in the morgue now. So Ducky at first is taking a bunch of photos. He's like taking one step and then taking 3 photos, and he's taking a few more and taking a bunch to presumably get a bunch of different photos that could be used to build some kind of model of the face of this person, but also it's right there.
The body, you mean, is right there?
Yeah, the body is in the morgue, so he's taking a bunch of photos and is like, with these, Abby will be able to build a computer model, because they have to give Ducky this gimmick of talking to the bodies as if explaining how all of this works, because otherwise he would just be working silently and going, and then just like writing noiselessly on a piece of paper.
Right.
That's how it has to work.
So it's a vehicle for exposition is what you're saying.
Exactly. That's what half of all dialogue in this show is. So they're going to use all these photos so that Abby can build a computer model of what the victim might have looked like before being drenched in acid. And then we have our next clip.
Remember that discoloration on the forearm we thought might be a birthmark? Well, it wasn't.
I digitally enhanced it. Watch.
Looks like a Rorschach test.
It's part of a tattoo that was blurred by the acid.
What is that?
That is the tail of a dolphin.
Our victim was a submariner.
Well, it would be a good guess.
Okay. At first I thought, I wonder if there's going to be some connection to the protesters in the earlier scene who were protesting about sea life.
Right.
But that seems a little bit of a stretch, actually. It does, to be fair, it does look a little bit like the tail of, I thought it was going to be a whale, but okay, dolphin.
Uh-huh.
But to immediately conclude that he's a submariner, I don't, that seems...
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
There's one other detail I forgot to include before putting that clip, because I thought it was in the clip. But the only other detail that Ducky gives is that death was caused by blunt force trauma to the head. And Gibbs is like, that's all? And Ducky's like, yep. And then they move on to the scene we just watched. So to recap for the audience, since they didn't see the clip, they only heard it. Whenever they were on scene with the body, they notice somewhere that there is a slight discoloration that they thought was a birthmark. Whenever they get back into the lab, Ducky takes a photo of it, and then Abby digitally enhances it and decides or figures out somehow from a very small shape that could be literally anything that it is the tail of a dolphin. And Gibbs, using his psychic powers, is immediately like, our victim was a submariner.
Yeah, that's what happened, and it was kind of dumb.
My favorite part of this, which I only noticed whenever I was taking the clips, is that after Gibbs says that, Ducky's immediate reaction is, well, that's a pretty good guess.
Yeah. Well, I
so
say
even Ducky's like, yeah, it's a guess.
Yeah. And
oh, boy.
I'm hoping that every episode henceforth will involve digitally enhancing something, because that's...
Oh man,
that's kind of MacGuffin is not the right word, but that
it's a cliche.
Yeah, it's a cliche. That's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, because when you have an incomplete set of evidence, all Abby needs to do is come in and enhance. Yeah, right.
Now, can I? Gosh, I don't know if I want to say this. You can be the judge of this, because there's something I want to say. You should say whether or not I should, because there's something that I could reveal about the nature of this episode, but we could just let it unfold naturally.
Oh, I want it to unfold naturally. I want to be disappointed.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I want to be disappointed in a linear kind of unfolding way.
I understand. So Gibbs immediately asks McGee, does he have any records of the subs? And you know what the situations are. And McGee immediately has a very messy desk, and then all of the other agents, because everyone else is in the room there too. Gibbs, Tony, and Kate are all in there, and all look at him disapprovingly because his desk is kind of messy. They're like, wow, he's bad at this. So he eventually finds the folder, and then Gibbs is like, okay, go off and get some more information about the subs, get the records of the subs. And then we cut to a scene of them walking on the dock, doing one of their classic walk-in talks, where they're walking around and saying, I could not say more, information that is so abominably clear whenever they're saying all this to each other. The things they say to one another in this exchange are extraordinary. This is also kind of a long clip because there's a few different moments in here that I wanted to sprinkle in that I'll explain after we watch. So here we have our fourth clip.
What if the body was put into acid not only to dispose of it,
But to make certain that it couldn't be identified.
Maybe the murderer didn't want us to know the submariner was dead.
Maybe.
Agent Gibbs. Yes, the Alpha rosters. Everyone on these subcruisers accounted for.
Including the Philadelphia?
Yes, sir.
The submariner is dead, but none are missing. And the dead man's identity was removed. Someone took his place on one of those subs.
An imposter?
Let's pay a visit to the submarine squadron commander.
You'll want to avoid Captain Veach. What? Well, I met him once before. He can be very difficult.
And you don't think that I can be difficult?
I'm sure you can, sir.
I recognize that actor now. So yeah, McGee.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time that in the clips he's shown. So yeah, I recognize him as a recurring character in this show.
Yep.
Of course I didn't know what his origin was. When they were talking, and this went from okay, so it's already bad because someone's been murdered. Obviously, that's not good.
Yeah.
To he's been swapped out. This now, like, they need to call like the CIA, right? Or I don't the FBI. Like this becomes a national security issue, right? Because it sounds like there's a ball on a submarine somewhere.
It certainly seems like it. Yeah. But again, this is all based on Gibbs having a hunch.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty big leap to say all crew have been accounted for on the submarine. Actually, you know what? Now, okay, so if I understand this correctly, McGee came up and said, look, I checked the rosters and checked in with all the submarines that are based here in Norfolk, and they all say that all of their personnel are accounted for. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And so Gibbs' conclusion, rather than revisit his initial suspicion that the sailor was a submariner, concludes that of course he was a submariner, and he's been replaced by someone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's an Occam's razor example here somewhere, right?
Yeah. I think this is an example of Occam's beard, which is the most complicated possible answer.
Yeah.
Must be the solution.
There you go. I love that. Okay,
so
all right. This is a twist. Yeah, this is a twist.
We're 3 completely asinine assumptions deep, right? The first is that the tattoo is actually of a dolphin. The second is that tattoo that we don't know is a dolphin means that the victim was a submariner. And the third is that the submariner that we don't know the identity of, based only on the idea of a partial tattoo, has been replaced by a mole in one of the submarines. We're 3 assumptions
and that mole
deep.
Presumably is a doppelganger for the murder victim, because like Sailor Smith shows up for duty and he looks completely different, right? Like different body type, different hairstyle, so on, and no one notices. So if he has been replaced by someone, that person must look like him, must be identical in appearance.
Yeah.
So therefore, if I'm Gibbs, then I would conclude that he has a twin.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. So, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm also going to run back to the beginning of that scene just to state what they said to one another.
Yes.
Because Gibbs' first statement in that scene is, what if the body was put into acid not just to dispose of it? And then Kate says, but to hide its identity. And then Tony says, someone didn't want us to know that the submariner was dead. Yeah.
I mean, you're right. Those are pretty obvious statements.
Like, I understand the utility of these things. I understand the utility of this dialogue. Someone is a few minutes late to catching the episode and they need to be caught up. But really? Really? Maybe they put this body in this thing that will destroy the body because they didn't want the body to be found? Is that why they did that?
Yeah, right.
Oh my God. The other... Also, after Gibbs is like, okay, let's go talk to the sub-commander, McGee, who's new, who's just trying to be good at his job, tries to give some helpful advice.
Yeah, right.
And is like, hey, you might not want to talk to this one guy. He's kind of mean.
Mm-hmm.
And Gibbs is immediately like, you don't think I can be more mean than that guy? And also, it really looks like they're gonna kiss.
It does, yeah. He got in really, really close. He got in really
like
close.
Like McGee just keeps looking at his lips. Like,
yeah.
Also, I will report that whenever I was editing the last episode, I did check AO3 for NCIS tags.
Oh, you did?
And there is a shockingly small amount of Gibbs X Burley content.
Well, I think that tells us what we need to do next.
Okay.
But also, I want to say that taking the homoeroticism out of it, and we shouldn't, but taking it out, for Gibbs to respond in that way is unnecessary and just a power move. That's all it is. It's him exerting dominance over a subordinate. That's all it is.
With absolutely no reason. Like, if McGee complained about it, and then they were like, hey, what the hell did you get into this new special agent's face for after he said, hey, this one guy's a bit of a pain to deal with.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? And Gibbs is like, how would you answer that question? Like, I know how he would answer it in the universe of the show, which is just to be like, he's like, I don't have time for this. I need to get back to my investigation.
Yeah.
Because he never answers questions directly.
Right.
Because he's avoidant. And, like, that's his entire personality.
Well, that's what happens to you after 3 divorces. Anyway.
After this, despite McGee's advice, Gibbs, Tony, and Kate all go to the office of the submarine commander, and he's just like, I don't really know what you guys are saying, because none of what you're saying makes sense. You're saying that there's a body that could be a submariner, but all of the crews are accounted for. If you want, on all of the subs that are still in port, I will increase security on them, but the Philadelphia is out right now, and they're running NATO exercises, so I'm not pulling them back in. And Gibbs is like, mean. I don't even remember what he says. Gibbs is just like, okay, well, if you're not going to call Philadelphia back, why don't you have me and Kate, go rendezvous with the ship so that we can figure things out on aboard the Philadelphia? And the commander is like, can we send someone else, please? And Gibbs is like, Kate, step out. And Gibbs is like, hey, this woman used to work for the Secret Service, directly for the director of the Secret Service, protecting the president. She's been trained in profiling, and she is the best person for this job. And the submarine commander is like, all of that's great. Females can't be deployed on subs. And then we cut to the outside of the building. Kate immediately starts yelling at Gibbs about being like, hey, what the hell is the problem with this? Are we in Victorian England? Goes on a rant about like why she's not allowed to do this. And then Gibbs, instead of stopping her and like reaffirming her, just says, are you claustrophobic? And then just walks away. And that's the only way he tells her that she's actually going to go.
Okay, well, he did stand up for her, at least. He's a complicated
It is
character.
Nice that he did that.
He's a complicated character.
Yeah, I understand what they're getting at. I understand. Granted, who knows who wrote this episode? Maybe we should look afterwards. But that scene in particular is what Gibbs is doing here, because he's not challenging the sexism of the Navy. He's just challenging someone because he has the ability to, without facing consequences.
No, that's a really good point. That would not have occurred to me. I know we try to take a lighthearted approach to these things, but that's very insightful. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Wow. But she is going. We've determined that she is.
Yes, she is going to go on. She's going to go on aboard the Philadelphia, and then we get our first commercial break. And whenever we come back from it, they're immediately already on a plane, and we have our next clip.
Wait.
This one's kind of loud.
But here's what I don't understand about this. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, all right, just to recap.
Yeah.
The dead sailor, they have operating under the assumption that the dead sailor serves on a submarine. All the submarines that are in port or that are not out to sea, they've said that their personnel are accounted for. The one submarine that is actually out to sea on maneuvers, they harder to communicate with them, obviously.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Again, I come back to there has to be a doppelganger, right? Because if the missing sailor, i.e. the murder victim, was on the USS Philadelphia and they went underway, that means that they went underway with a crew member that was impersonating this murder victim, and everybody knows each other on a ship, right? Everybody, and especially a submarine, because I think that their complement, they have like 150. It's not that many people, right? And sure, I mean, like a couple hundred people is a lot of people if you're at a potluck, right? But if you serve for years on this thing and you're in an enclosed space for weeks and months at a time, then you get to know the face and probably the personality of everyone else on that ship. So it has to be a doppelganger. And not only a doppelganger in appearance, but also in mannerism and in history and in the things that they know about the other crew members. This just is becoming, all right, you said at the outset of this that this was a really dumb episode. And the way the deck is stacked at the moment, the way this foundation has been laid so far, the only way it can evolve is in a really stupid direction. Okay, sorry, I had to go on. I had to go on that rant.
Oh, you're following exactly what I was hoping.
Okay.
You're following the same train of what as I was watching this one.
The same train of what? Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to get a little bit of a throwback from one of the previous episodes during this one, because obviously to get onto the submarine, they first have to get onto an aircraft carrier. So we get a little throwback to last episode. So here is clip 5.
I think I'm more excited to dive on a nuclear sub than I was flying Air Force One.
See if you're still as excited by the time we get there.
Special Agent Gibbs, Special Agent Todd. Welcome to the Enterprise. Sorry your stay's so short. The helo's standing by.
How do we get from the frigate to the submarine? Swim?
Close.
I don't see a submarine!
You see it now?
There's a bunch of stock footage that they cannibalize together and intersplice, images of the two of them. And the whole purpose of this is to show how impressive all of this organization, logistics, and also just the scale of these things, right? These are huge machines.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But I'll just tell you right fuck now, right, that the viewer can't see, right, at the end there, as they're approaching the submarine, which, breaks the waves and so on. They're in, God, I can't remember the name of it. They're in one of these little boats that are used for like ship-to-ship transfers and so on and so forth. There's an actual term for it. I can't remember what it is. They would be seasick, man. They absolutely would be seasick, right? Like some people just don't get seasick at all. It's some people, but most people do to some extent experience seasickness. And between the airplane, the carrier, the helicopter, the frigate, the little boatswain's boat or whatever you call it, one of them would have been puking their guts out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God. All of this footage is so funny. And this same thing happens in basically all of the episodes where they use these very pulled out pieces of footage. And I can't necessarily tell, because you said this is cannibalized stock footage. The shift in quality is so violent, because even during the really far out ones, it goes back to 4:3 aspect ratio, which is so hilarious to me. It's so hilarious how bad it looks. It's like the clips in the first episode whenever it switches to showing them in the CGI plane, which looks good compared to what we see here. And there's another few shots in the rest of this episode that are hilariously bad with them on the sub.
What are they going to gain out of being on the submarine in terms of investigation? Right. Other than
that's a fantastic question.
Right. That was the first thing that popped into my head when Gibbs was like, we want to go out to Philadelphia, and I was just thinking, like, why? Isn't there like the murder victim is on land, and while the murder may not have taken place on land, the events to get the body into the 50-gallon drum, all of that, there must be a trail of evidence that's worth investigating there. So I don't know what they're going to gain out of being here other than to say, today's episode is on a submarine.
Precisely.
Yeah. Okay.
So the two of them get onto the submarine, and they immediately meet two commanders, Commander Peters and Lieutenant Commander Akron. The only one we need to worry about is Commander Peters, and eventually we'll learn about the Cobb, the chief of the boat. Peters gives his Lieutenant Commander comm of the bridge. Is that what it is on a sub? Is it still a bridge?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay. And then they go off to just talk in, I guess, a stateroom or a meeting room or whatever. And Gibbs fills Peters in on the situation, and Peters is immediately like, this is really stupid. Like, why are you here? Like, we're in the middle of an exercise right now. Why are you doing this? And that, they argue very briefly about it. And then Peters goes, hey, I just want to let you know, we're doing an anti-submarine warfare test between, our vessel and another submarine. So, and there are 5 men. That's one of the other things we learned. There are 5 men who are new to the boat. So there's the detail that hasn't super clearly said is that the Philadelphia left port like a day and a half to 2 days ago. So it was in port, and then a day and a half to 2 days ago, it went out again for this anti-submarine warfare test. And the commanders of this boat have a bet going that whoever wins is going to buy the other a bottle of vodka. And there are 5 new men who have just transferred over from other ships or other subs, and they have all been sequestered so that Gibbs and Kate can question them.
Okay, that's important, because if the murder victim was due to report as a new member of the submarine, then no one would have known what he looked like.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we've got our next clip. Oh my gosh. This one, this is some more of our, Abby does fake computer stuff. So this is our next clip.
Oh, he's coming along.
Yeah. Looks like he's going to be kind of a hunk. He's got a good strong chin.
I agree. Sort of Cary Grant.
I was thinking more Hugh Grant-ish.
So that was just a way to show the difference in ages. Right, that's all.
That was just like, wow, we're different, aren't we?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's what it was for. I also love the fact that the listener can't see this, but it's very interesting to me that what happened there was Abby was looking at a computer screen as the condition, as the image was rendering, right? So Abby is looking at a screen. So the camera starts, it's facing the screen. So you're seeing the computer animation begin to start to render the different layers around the skeletal form, because it's forming a face, right? And then as if to show that, hey, there's a person here doing this activity, the scene, the camera shifts to looking at her looking at the screen, right? So it seemed like one of those infinity mirrors, right? Where it's like she's looking at the screen, but we're looking at her, and so on. And then it cuts back to the screen as we're seeing it continue to render, and as if to show that she's really intent on this. She's not doing anything, right? She's just watching it. This camera.
It certainly doesn't seem like she's doing anything.
No, she's not. She's not an active participant. She's witnessing, is what she's doing. And then the camera cuts back to just looking at her, looking at the screen. And I thought there was like an Ouroboros going on there, right? But then Ducky
it's just going to cut back and forth between the two of them.
Between the two of them, yeah. And then Ducky comes in and then talks about Cary Grant. She's like Hugh Grant and so on. But even now at this point in 2025, she is showing her age as 20.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. I'm also going to pause, or I'm not going to pause here, but I'm going to stop for a second here and say we're about to witness one of the only good shots that I've ever seen in an episode of NCIS.
All right, we eventually got there. Okay, I can't wait. I'm excited.
So they're about to execute. Oh my goodness, no. They're about to interrogate all of these new individuals, all these new petty officers that have come onto the sub. And we're only going to watch one of them because all the rest, it's just fluff. It doesn't matter. So we have clip number 7.
Enter. Petty Officer Drew.
Yes, sir.
Have a seat.
Yes, sir.
Could you give us your right thumbprint, please?
That would be your other right thumb, Petty Officer.
Oh. Sorry, sir. I'm a little nervous.
It says here you're from Boston.
South Boston, actually, sir.
There's a difference.
Well, if you're from Boston, there is.
He seems like a likable enough guy.
Yeah, just nervous guy. Gets left and right confused. I can't think of the number of people that I know that do that. So it's high, is all I'm saying.
Just looking at his collar, he is an E5, so he's a petty officer second class. So he's not junior enlisted. Okay.
So he's got some experience.
Yeah, I think so. It takes a few years to become an E5. So where we're at here, though, is that one of these 5 new crewmen is probably the murderer, or involved somehow in the murder.
Correct.
Assuming that the incredible chain of assumptions that got Gibbs on board this submarine are correct. If all that's true, and if the hundreds of thousands of dollars that were spent to get the 2 of them on this boat are true, if all that's true, then one of so we've got our cast of potential characters here. One of these 5 guys is the bad guy. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So they talk to this guy who's Petty Officer Drew, and then they do a kind of interesting shot too, where they like push the camera behind Kate's back, and then as it's coming out the other way, they switch to another interrogation. That's kind of interesting, I guess. Then the second person they interrogate is Petty Officer Thompson, and they're like, "Hey, so it says here that you enlisted whenever you were 19." And he says, "Yeah, that's when I graduated high school." And Gibbs immediately gets judgy and is like, "Well, that's a weird time to graduate high school. You know, people definitely weren't, put into kindergarten late. People have never gotten horrifically injured and needed to have. That's entirely wrong. You're outside of the norm, like Gibbs always is." And the guy's just like, "Yeah, I got mono one of my years, and they sent me back a whole year." And I'm going to be honest, I got mono whenever I was in college, and it was horrific.
Yeah. I've never had it, but I've heard it's pretty bad.
I can completely believe it.
Yeah. And it's just in keeping with Gibbs' assumption that anyone who is different must therefore be guilty.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that is always how he is. It also, just Gibbs this episode. And I'm half as a joke, half in reality. Is this all tied to the fact that he didn't get coffee?
It's been a few days, but
it's been a little while. But like, what if it is?
Yeah, he hasn't quite recovered from that.
So after they talk to all these guys, all of them are just like, I don't really know. It seems like this guy was lying. Seems like that guy might have been lying. And then Kate is trying to bring up one of these bullshit, like, profiling things. The thing, whenever you ask somebody a question and they look down and to the left, they're lying. Some of that pseudoscience stuff. Yeah. And Gibbs, as she's saying it, like, finishes her sentence. And she's like, "Oh, so you've been trained in profiling too?" And he's like, "No, I've just done this a lot."
Yeah, well, because you have your book learning, lady, but I've been out here actually doing the work.
Yeah, you might have a certificate and a lot of effort, but I am alive, so I'm
also,
better than
I'm
you.
A man.
And also, I'm a man. Yeah, I'm a living man, which means I'm better than you, woman that's learned things.
Yeah,
that's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life.
So they go through and they interview each one of these 5 crewmen, but we're only going to see the video of just what we just saw of this kid from South Boston.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So they get through and then there's nothing conclusive. All of the prints match, and there's nothing off. All of them seem to get their stories right. There's nothing that seems excessively incorrect with what has gone on here.
I'm going with Evil Twin. One of these guys is.
Yeah. So this anti-submarine warfare test that they're doing is continuing, and Gibbs goes up to Peters and is like, "Hey, how could someone that wants to sabotage the boat do that?" And he lists a few things and is like, "They could do this, they could do this, they could do this. Do you want me to keep going? Because I know every single way that someone could sabotage this boat. Do you guys just need to leave because you're not helping? I need those 5 men back." And Gibbs is like, "No, we're gonna keep working because we need to bother." And that's the end of that scene.
Yeah, he likes to annoy people, apparently.
He's real good at it, is the problem as well. So this next scene, Abby has constructed a facial model. She's finished constructing a facial model, and she also has the photos of the 5 men that Gibbs has interrogated, but it doesn't match any of them. So she sends it. So she's like, "Okay, now that I've got this, I'm going to email it to Tony." And then we cut to Tony, and we have our next clip.
Do you see it yet?
Yeah, it's coming through.
So you getting lonely down there by yourself, hon?
Oh, I'm not alone. I'm with Special Agent McGee. Say hello.
Hey, McGee. How's your sig hanging?
Gotta go, Abs.
What'd she look like?
Who?
Abby. Sounds cute.
Not your type.
Well, how do you know that?
Have you ever had the slightest urge to tattoo your buttocks, McGee?
I don't think so.
Then we need never speak of her again.
Make copies, circulate them around the base, see if anyone recognizes the guy.
So first of all, the reconstruction of the face, that's what we were looking at, right? The image.
Yes, that's what that photo was.
But it looked like a photo of an actual person. And I'm just thinking, but that photo looked photoreal. It looked like she just snapped a picture of a guy somewhere, right?
Maybe that's also the compression of Discord. Overall, it looks pretty good, but once you look at it for a while, it does look like a photo. It looks like a render of something, or like it looks like an okay 3D model render.
And then the dialogue between the two of them, hey, what's she look like? She's cute, so on and so forth. It was interesting that what's his name, Bozo, was actually in the position of telling the other guy that he's being inappropriate.
Well, I don't think that he's doing that. I think he's like, Abby's too cool for you, or you're not weird enough for Abby.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's what he was trying to say. You're not weird enough for Abby. Yeah,
and I also swear, I could be wrong about this because I've listened to this clip a few times and I feel like I hear a different thing. But I'm pretty sure Abby asks McGee, "How's your stick hanging?"
Yeah, that's what she said. And then he looked quizzical. And I don't know what that means. Even as an idiomatic expression, I have no idea what that means.
I have an idea of what it means, but that wouldn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, I have an idea, like the imagery. Right?
Yeah.
But that would be a very odd thing for her to say. And she is quirky, but she's, okay.
Yeah, she's not like, I mean, the core of this scene, also there's a few elements, which is Abby says she's going to email the photo to Tony, and then he gets it via fax.
Yeah, right. I did, right, I did notice that.
And then Abby, depending on your reading of that question, either is flirting with McGee while on speakerphone at a government workplace to another government workplace. Mm-hmm. And then Tony asks about like personal opinions about tattoos, which is bordering on something that I wouldn't say is work appropriate. I think it's moderately okay, but I don't know. Like, you're in a very professional environment working. I mean, clearly these people aren't, but theoretically at least, you would be in a very professional environment where you don't talk about getting tattoos on your ass.
No, I mean, as you were saying that, I was just reflecting on, and it just occurs to me, I've had this in my subconscious ever since we started doing this way back with episode 1, that the style of dialogue, I want to try to describe it, but I can't. But it's they're trying to be edgy, but they're also just trying to fill space between each moving the plot forward, because the characters have to interact with each other, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they have to on some level, right? They're not robots, but it's just an odd way of conveying dialogue in a professional environment.
The funniest thing is that there is a scene coming up later in this episode, which is, and I cannot overstate this enough, the perfect example of exactly what you just said.
Yeah, so, if there's a rhythm to it, if there's a formula to it, it's that one character makes an observation, another character asks a leading question, which either terminates the conversation right there, or the original person responds quizzically, and the other person just lets it go. Right?
Yeah, it seems like it, yeah.
So it's either like A, B, and then that concludes it, or it's A, B, A, B, and that concludes it. But the dialogue isn't meaningful in any way, right? It's either a relation of facts, because you have to do that in order for the show to progress, or it's these weird dialogues between characters that have no real conclusion.
Yeah, things sort of just like hit a hard stop and then things change. Which is why I think the editing on this show is so incredibly staccato. Like, because everything has to follow this exact same pattern, you can't show any one setting for too long because it would get too dull.
You are absolutely correct about that. You are absolutely right about that. Staccato is the word of the day for this show. I'll say that based on the dialogue, now this is episode 6, so I got a few hours into this, right? So I understand the show. I can't tell if any of the characters like each other.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, they're there just to do a job, and if you can help me, great. If not, I'm going to ask an open-ended question, which will probably make you go away.
And there's also, I think it's also part of the fact that the writers haven't lived with these characters enough for long enough to know how their relationships might develop. because they might change drastically. But we also have no way of knowing that until the series continues, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a style to this dialogue, and I'm going to try to search for a description. You know, I hate it when people say, "You know what I mean," but do you know what I mean? You know, there's definitely a tone and a rhythm to the dialogue between and among the characters that is oddly unsatisfying. Anyway,
Totally.
Okay.
All right. Back
Where are we
on the
at?
sub.
Back
Oh,
on the sub.
God.
Okay. Meanwhile,
back on the sub. The anti-submarine warfare test is continuing, and they have found the other sub. The point of this is like they're basically simulating an encounter with an enemy sub underwater, and they've found it, and they just have to get close enough to, fake hit it.
Right.
At this exact moment, Kate and Gibbs are both they're reviewing all of the information they have. And Kate's looking at all the fingerprints and asking, like, what if the person they're looking for is on a different boat? And Gibbs, once again, just says, this is the boat that makes sense. That's his entire explanation. This is the one that makes sense.
Okay.
And then we have our next clip.
Where'd you get the records?
Personnel office in Norfolk.
What if someone altered the service record before we or Commander Peters got it?
Meaning that the imposter worked in the personnel office.
Or has an accomplice?
I come back to, like, this is a potential national security breach, which goes way beyond just a couple of naval cops, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, shouldn't they be ringing the alarm bells and, like, bringing in, like, espionage people, right? I mean, and it's not like a tugboat or something. It's a submarine. It's one of the most.
It's a nuclear submarine.
Yeah. Right. So it just seems like the moment that it became apparent, right, how ridiculous the premise is, but the moment it became apparent that they might have an imposter on this submarine, they should have brought it back, right? They should have brought the submarine back. And I think all of this is way above their pay grade.
Unless they're making way more than we expect, then yes.
I mean, they're the equivalent of. I mean, I don't want to diminish their role. I mean, they have an important role, but they're investigators. They're criminal investigators, right? And this implies that there's something way beyond just simple criminality.
That there is structured, intentional espionage of a branch of the military, and they're like, what if we sent 2 people out instead of pulling back a nuclear sub? Because as soon as they introduce this idea of there's a test going on, there's a drill going on for this type of warfare, and your brain immediately clicks over into, if someone were on one of those subs, then they could cause a mass casualty event between those 2 submarines, right?
Yeah, right?
Like, that's the first place that you would go. So that immediately would be like, both submarines need to get, like, every single new person, yada yada yada. You need to make sure that there's only skeleton crews on board, make sure no one is talking to one another, get back to crew, and then put everyone in isolation until you can figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? There's bound to be some kind of process. That's one of the other things that I was thinking about, which is there is bound to be some kind of procedure that would be followed by people in a sane version of this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in that,
not a sane situation though. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely not. In that clip, I'll go back and say, in that clip, Gibbs creates this idea out of thin air because they're looking at the personnel files and they're like, well, nothing's wrong with the personnel files. So Gibbs is like, well, what if I make another assumption and say, what if the place we got the personnel files was also incorrect? What if I, Leroy Jethro Gibbs, am the ultimate supreme observer of truth in the universe and manage to know that these personnel files, whichever one is applicable, is specifically wrong and were altered before the commander of the boat saw them?
Well, you encapsulated an observation that I was going to make, because if you continue down this series of preposterous assumptions, he could say things like, are we even on a submarine right now? Right? Perhaps we're in a hologram. Right? So, I mean, you can You can make your day very interesting by just making random assumptions about why
You
things are.
can.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So Gibbs, upon having this revelation, immediately rushes up to the bridge and demands of Peters, the commander, like, "Hey, I need you to get us to communication depth so that I can contact NCIS headquarters." And he's like, "Hey, we're in the middle of this exercise and we're about to finish, so no." And Gibbs is like, "Come on, man, like Gibbs says the exact same thing. There's someone here to sabotage this boat. It could kill everyone on board. I really need to talk to headquarters." And for some reason that's enough. And he's like, "Okay, you have 2 minutes." Gibbs calls Tony and is like, "Hey, you should go to the records. You should go to the personnel records office and see if they could have been altered." And Tony's like, "Oh, you think they were altered?" And then Gibbs puts down the headset. So Gibbs doesn't even use the 2 full minutes.
Right.
And then just goes back to his room, and then they lose the other sub, the ASW. They lose the other sub.
Right. So he's ruined everything. He's ruined
Yes.
there.
Okay. Now we're cutting to the lab. Abby and Ducky are talking again, and Ducky comes in and is like, "Hey, I have good news and I have bad news. We don't have any DNA matches because the computers have been down," which is a plot contrivance exclusively so that this episode is slightly longer.
Yep.
And also, we haven't been able to find any photo matches. So Ducky is like, "Hey, I have an other right. What if we get photo confirmation of all of these other people from independent sources?" Then we have our next clip.
I just know that there's a point here somewhere.
Yeah, all ships have a crew photograph.
Yes. 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 I'll download crew photos from websites of the 5 suspects' previous deployment.
Okay. I mean, that's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that seems like a logical thing to do.
Yeah, maybe a lot earlier than now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. A lot earlier than now. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, so the basic thesis of that clip was Ducky's like, "Hey, all ships have collective crew photographs. So if you're trying to figure out if the person is on the crew or not, then you can just find that crew photograph. And if he's in there, then we have some more information. If he's not, we have a different amount of information." Cool.
Yeah, and if any of the photos are of poor quality, just enhance.
Yeah, then you can just, make stuff up. And then back in the office, Tony and McGee are talking to a woman from the personnel file office. I'm not sure what the office is, but just the office that handles personnel files. And she's giving them some exposition, and then Tony flirts with her, and then she kind of flirts back. But then McGee is kind of like awkward, and he's like, "Hey, do you mind if I ask her a question?" And Tony's like, "Yeah, you don't need to ask me. It's fine." And he goes up to her and he's like, "Hey, has anyone been fired in the past few days or the past few weeks?" She's like, "You know what? Someone has been fired. It was this guy." And then she hands him like the files or the records that they requested, which is just like, past information of a bunch of basically the addresses of all the people that work there. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, this one guy did get fired for this and this and this and this. And he worked here for about 1.5 years. So they're like, "Okay, we know where we're going." And we immediately cut back to the sub. And this, oh my gosh. So this scene is weird. The first thing we get is something we already established, which is that they're trying to find the other sub on sonar, and then they discover that they have lost it. And one of the lieutenant commanders is just like, "Damn NCIS trying to keep us from getting killed, losing us our game, and the commander a bottle of vodka. Humdrum, whatever." And then we have our next clip.
Drink.
What's with all the water?
Oh, you gotta hydrate on the submarine.
All you've had me doing is hydrating.
Drink it. So how's your bladder?
What?
The cob's at the end of the passageway trying to keep an eye on us. You gotta distract him. You're gonna need help working the toilet.
Gibbs.
Trust me, Kate. On a submarine, it's a very complicated mechanism.
Is that why you've been shoving water down my throat for the past hour?
I want to check out Petty Officer Thompson.
All right, well, you don't have to drown me. You could just ask. Come on.
Yeah, that just seems so contrived.
Yeah, that's just weird.
That's just weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the right word for that. It's weird.
My note for that scene is Gibbs is feeding Kate a bunch of water so that she'll have to go to the bathroom to distract someone. And that's the only reason.
But we determined a couple of episodes ago that if you want to distract people on a Navy ship, then you just have to have a woman walk across the deck and look hot.
Yeah. And I mean, now we're adding in the element of a woman that has to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Walking across part of a naval vessel. So, you know, who knows? Okay, we're immediately back to Norfolk where Tony and McGee get to this guy's house and it looks practically abandoned. Like it's overgrown all over the place. It just doesn't look like there's a bunch on there. And getting out of the car, both of them already have their hands on their guns.
We're way into this episode, right? We're way into this episode.
Oh
right?
yeah, I've got 3 clips left. We're almost finished.
And you know, given everything that's transpired so far, there's not that much time left, and all that does is tell me that whatever it is that they do to resolve this is going to be so ridiculous, right? Because if we have no idea where this is going, the way they've laid things out, if it were increasingly apparent what had happened, then that would be a satisfying conclusion. But we have no idea what went wrong, like who the murderer was, any of that. And we're almost at the end of the episode. And so it's either going to be a 2-parter or, right, a mythical creature is going to come down out of the skies and reveal all, right? So it's just telling me that whatever denouement there is, whatever conclusion there is, it's getting increasingly more ridiculous the closer they get to the end.
Without a question, without a doubt.
Okay, so they're at this guy's house who had been fired from the personnel office.
Yes.
The house looks overgrown and abandoned, and that puts them on edge. So they're coming out of the car. They got their hands on their weapons. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They look through all the windows. The doors are all locked. There's clearly nobody there. They knock on a few times. And then McGee is just like, well, it looks like we're probably going to have to get command search authorization, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that because he says for some reason they may not be able to get that one. So he was like, okay, well, I guess we could go to a local judge and get a search warrant. And then Tony picks up a rock and he says, or we could play football. And then he says a bunch of random shit about football. And then he throws a rock through the front door.
I saw that coming, actually. I saw that coming.
It's a very, I figured he was going to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. After Kate has gone down the hallway to distract the chief of the boat, Gibbs is wandering around the ship and he finds Petty Officer Thompson, who's also drinking water. And for some reason, I was like, oh, is he going to get his DNA? And no, he doesn't. It's just Dasani product placement.
So the Petty Officer Thompson is one of the 5 that they interviewed.
Yes.
He is the second one that they interviewed that we did not see a clip for. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
He's the one who said that he had mono whenever he was in high school. He got pushed back a year.
Okay.
And so Gibbs is like, hey, you lied to us about why you missed a year of high school. Why did you lie to us? And he's just like, dude, I was in juvie for a year. They expunged it from my record. I didn't want to tell the Navy I was in juvie. And they expunged that from my record. And if I told them, it would probably keep me from being able to be in a sub. And he's like, oh.
That's it?
And yeah. And then the chief of the boat is like, hey, I don't appreciate you pulling these stunts. And then he walks away mad.
Oh, so the petty officer said all this in front of other people.
Oh, yeah, they're in, I think it's like a weapons room. Like it's where they would like put in munitions. So he kind of says it, but it seems like it's a very private conversation. There's only like 1 or 2 other people around, and one of them is the cop.
Okay.
And the only thing the cop says after that is like, you can go back to work now, Petty Officer Thompson, and that's all.
Okay. And Gibbs just believes what this kid said.
Yeah.
So despite Gibbs essentially expressing dubiousness to anyone around him about anything, he believes this kid.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I guess in the purest sense, Gibbs was right. Because the thing he was thinking is, this kid is lying to us. I'm going to figure out why. And if he was lying again, then they would have been able to catch it. Then there would have been some other reason. But he was like, yeah, I didn't say that because I wanted to work in a sub. But the other thing is, he says, it was expunged from my record. If it was expunged from his record, then it's not your business.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So, yeah, but he's like, yeah, I wanted to be able to do this job. This is Abby and Ducky talk about their experimentation from their photos, or I guess the results of what they get from their photos, and she's found a clue, and it's based on, she goes on this little story about, like, I remember whenever I was in school, I missed this club shoot day, and I wasn't in the photo. So that had me thinking, what if there were team photos that were taken of individual teams on the sub, and I found the photo for the sonar team or whatever. And that's where she finally spots the face that matches her render.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, okay, so we know, right? And then we cut back to Tim and McGee's, Tim is McGee's first name. I keep getting that confused. Tony and McGee are searching the house. They find literally nothing. It looks like a bunch of stuff that's just been thrown in there to look like a house. Then McGee finds there's an internet cable running from the inside, or running from one of the walls behind a dresser and then behind a bookshelf. And for one thing, like, really? Like, so they push the big bookshelf over to where this cable leads to, and there's a door behind it. And they see all this stuff taped up against the walls, and it's more dead whale sonar stuff.
Dead whale Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it sort of pans down to the computer, and there's an animation. There's a very crude 3D animation of a whale attacking a sub and breaking it in half. So we have our next clip.
Guess flying toasters would have been too much to ask for.
Let's see what we have here.
You've taken computer classes.
Master's in Computer Forensics, MIT.
I see.
Well, he's definitely an eco-terrorist. He's looking for retribution for the whales. Oh, this isn't good.
Why?
Isopropyl methylphosphonofluoridate.
BS in Biomedical Engineering, Johns Hopkins.
You?
Ohio State, phys ed. I was a jock. What is that in my language?
Sarin gas. We're planning on introducing it into a submarine's air conditioning system.
All right, I'm sorry. I have to ask a few questions about what led us up to this point. So they go to this house. It appears to be abandoned. They see an Ethernet cable, right? That is kind of running off into a weird direction. So they trace it behind a bookcase. They push the bookcase over to reveal an additional room.
Yes.
Right, okay. And then they go into this room, and it's got all of this eco-terrorist paraphernalia in it.
Yes.
Also, it has a computer that is actively running and that is not locked in any way, so they can just jiggle the mouse and it comes up, right?
Well, yeah, but, McGee has a master's in computer forensics.
Well, we determined that because he was typing fast.
Yeah, right? Yeah. He was good at typing things.
Yeah, he was good at typing. And I was like, oh, you know a lot about computers. Yeah.
It also seems like the very first thing he did was, like, bring up some kind of, like, government hard drive decryption technology, which somehow just was already on the... Yeah, it just says drive encryption STD-MIL GD 2964-bit enter key, and he writes gov-encry, and for some reason it's just like, oh yeah, sure. It just lets him get into the computer.
All right.
Because what he says immediately after this, because he goes, oh man, it's sarin gas. And he goes, oh, it looks like they're going to add it into the sub's air conditioning system. That's just on the computer. It's just written there.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, within seconds of gaining access to this machine, he's able to assume a complete profile of this person's intent. He hasn't had any time to review these documents, to understand how they're organized. Okay, all right. Just like if you log onto my computer, you'd find my resumes and so on. But it would take you a little while to figure out, like, what the contents of my hard drive were.
Yeah.
But this guy, apparently, whoever the bad guy is, left all of the most incriminating documents open on his machine, and he left them open in a specific order so that you could go from one to another and figure out what his plan was.
Yeah.
right?
And also, like, this is the thing I was going to say before I played the clip, which is, if you are, even if this person is a self-described eco-terrorist, why the hell would you leave in your abandoned, immaculate house a bright blue Ethernet cable sticking out of the wall? Like, if you know what they're eventually going to find out is that they have prototyped a small capsule that will, whenever exposed to a certain degree of cold, will expand and open and throw all this sarin gas out through the air conditioning of a sub. You don't know how to reroute an Ethernet cable?
Yeah, right. Or at least like mask it in some way.
Or cut a hole in the back of if he'd cut a hole in the back of the dresser that was right next to the Ethernet cable and then pushed it up against the Ethernet cable, they wouldn't have found anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, this person left all of this electronic equipment running. It's all turned on.
It was just on. Like, do they just come back and they open that door after moving the bookcase and they see the animation of the whale eating the sub and they're like, it's so good to be home. Like,
that's completely ridiculous. Okay, but now we at least we have a story. We kind of know the backstory here. It just occurred to me that in the event that these two agents couldn't piece together what the motivations were of this person from the documents that they saw, he helpfully provided an animation of a whale destroying a submarine. Just in case they're visual learners, right? Just in case they're visual learners, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So we still know who this person is, though.
Okay,
right? This is the person that was fired from the personnel management department. But that's all we know about them. We don't know their background.
Do know a name. The only thing we know is that they're named Joshua Fox. That's who they are in the show. They now know that it's an eco-terrorist and that there is a well-calculated plan to release sarin gas on a submarine. They just don't really know which one, I guess.
Got it.
Gosh. And also, I find it overwhelming how overeducated McGee is. He's like, oh yeah, I have a master's in computer forensics, and I have a bachelor's of science in biomedical engineering. What? Anyway.
Yeah, he happens to have training in the two fields that would require him to properly interpret this evidence.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, he's just like, oh yeah, I took 8 semesters of organic chemistry. So the sub after this immediately gets a message on like a low frequency thing or whatever it is. That's basically just like a very low text fax or almost like a telegraph. The only thing they could send is text. My question now is, can they not send those otherwise? Like, why didn't they use that to communicate with DiNozzo earlier instead of having to make the drama about surfacing and losing the sub? Just manufacturing drama.
It's a mystery.
One of these two things is fake. So so the sub, they get this message that's like, hey, it looks like the intended terror attack is the Philadelphia. They're going to flood the air conditioning system with sarin gas. And the sub is just like immediately surface. We have to get to the surface immediately. So the entire sub lists backwards while they shoot to the surface. And the chief of the boat comes to get them and is like, hey, we just got a message about it. And then we cut back to the lab. And then this is where Abby and Ducky discover this is where they discover the thing that I said before, which is that there is someone that was absent on a crew photo day and it matches the rendering that they made. So someone else is sitting at the sonar station and they have replaced Petty Officer Drew.
Someone who apparently really loves whales.
Yeah, somebody who's just like, man, I love whales so much. Why did I join the Navy?
Yeah.
So right after Ducky and Abby discover this, we cut to Drew, or the person impersonating Drew, on his station. He's like, hey, can I request leave to go to the head? And the lieutenant commander is like, did us having to launch toward the surface of the ocean make you need to pee a little bit? And he's like, yeah, it did. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. So-and-so, replace them. And then they immediately get a second message and all it says is Drew. And then so they run off and they're like, okay, we got to find Drew. And then they go to his bunk, and he's dead. He killed himself.
Oh, so how did he know the jig was up other than that just they surfaced very quickly?
Well, they sent the message around, and he was at his sonar station, so they just yelled it out. They were just like, well, okay, we just got a message from so-and-so that says that there's a sarin gas attack, and it's probably going to target us, so we need to surface immediately. It could be in the air conditioning system, so we need to get to the surface so we can open up the hatch and deploy all of the emergency breathing stuff. And so that's how he found out. And then he immediately just bails.
And then he killed himself in his bunk.
And then he kills himself in his bunk. He tied a plastic bag over his head. And they find out that the person that is impersonating Petty Officer Drew is former Petty Officer Sean Travis, who knew Joshua Fox, the person that was filed from the personnel office. They're both apparently radical eco-whale freaks, is the phrase used in the show. So they get to the surface, and they make a call. They talk, I think, like Gibbs and Tony and everybody talk back and forth very briefly, and then just sort of establish some more information to get that, what we just said, across. And whenever they get back down, they close the hatch, and they're like, okay, we're going to go below the surface again because we're faster, and we're returning to port now, and we need more speed. So it's going to get us there faster, but we're going to have to keep the AC off. So it's going to get hot. Okay. Then we go back to the lab, and we have our next clip.
So what's Agent McGee like?
Like most newbies. Quiet, green, gullible.
Bye.
I don't think so.
No, Tony, the canister. It has a bimetal trigger.
Yeah, so it's turned on by either what?
Hot or cold. This one digs cold. When the temperature drops below 5 degrees centigrade, the trigger releases whatever's in the canister. What is in the canister?
Sarin gas.
Nasty.
So what's cold enough to trigger it on a sub?
Fridge, freezer, air conditioner. Is Agent McGee cute?
Can a guy be cute to you without body art?
Sure. I'm not a snob.
Okay, so they've turned off the AC on the sub, and they're underwater, because apparently they travel faster underwater. But she said that it's possible that the switch can be triggered either through heat or cold. But she focused on the cold part. She got it down to like 5 degrees Celsius. But I gotta believe that them turning off the AC, thinking that's gonna save them, but her commenting that the switch could also be triggered by heat, that's gonna play a role here somehow.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so we get into this next scene, and it begins with Gibbs drinking coffee, and Kate is like, how can you drink coffee when it's so hot? And he's like, well, it helps me think. And then there's a knock on the door, and there's a guy holding a tray of ice cream. And he's like, hey, the skipper wanted me to offer you guys some ice cream. And there's like 5 different bowls of ice cream, like heaping bowls of ice cream. And Gibbs like sits down, takes a bowl, and like starts to eat it. And she's like, wow, do you think we have enough? And he goes, well, there's 40 more gallons in the galley. You know, we got to get rid of before it melts. She's like, oh, that's weird. And then Gibbs finally goes, it's where they put the body.
What body? The guy who killed himself. Okay, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
It's where they put the body on the sub so that it doesn't like start decomposing.
Sure.
And naturally, Gibbs, as he's beginning to eat the ice cream, has a bit of a realization.
What?
Anyone who served on a sub knows that. Travis didn't commit suicide to give up. Suicide was his backup plan. Where's the freezer cup?
Loading door right here, sir. Right there.
Bastard booby-trapped himself. Once he knew he couldn't get into the cooling system, he went to his backup plan before we could arrest him.
The sarin gas canister was designed to be triggered by cold. Travis knew that if he died, you'd put him in the freezer.
You mean he swallowed the canister?
Yeah.
If his core temperature gets to the trigger temperature, the gas will be released.
It already has.
And it leaks out. We're gonna die.
I'll get the skipper to do another emergency
There's
blow.
no time for that. Kate, go fill in the skipper. Come on. There's one way to get this guy off this boat in a hurry. Go. Move it. Same way. Move. Make a hole. Make a hole. Move it. Move. Help us.
Thompson, we need a tube.
We've got torpedoes in 2, 3, and 4, sir.
Load this in 1.
Evans is in there doing maintenance. Get him out of there. Get him out, guys. Come on.
Torpedo room, con.
Torpedo room, cop.
You have permission to fire.
Aye, aye, sir. Secure the inner door.
Aye, aye.
Ready, water shot.
Aye, aye.
Open outer door.
Outer door open.
Flex 2.
Tube flooding.
Fire number 1.
So stupid. It's such manufactured drama, right? It's such manufactured drama. Like, what he was in a body bag, right? And he was in a freezer. Both. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I would enjoy that situation, but so all right, wait, let me step back for a moment. The sarin gas is in his body. Right. Okay. And the trigger has gone off because he knew that they would put him in a refrigerator because otherwise his body would be decomposing, et cetera, et cetera. But he's in a body bag and he's sealed in a refrigerator. I don't know if those things are airtight, but given the danger involved, it seems like they would put him back in the body bag, close the door to the freezer, close the door to the galley, right? And then surface, right? Rather than take the risk of dragging his body across the boat, right? To the tube. And then let's say we conclude that that is the best course of action, right? And they get the body, they put it in the torpedo tube, and they seal it off. They're done. They don't have to fire the body out, right?
Yeah,
it's not like
they don't.
It's not like the sarin's going to leak out of his body and then somehow get back into the ship through the torpedo tube, right? It was totally unnecessary for them to shoot his body at. Okay, that was just really stupid. Every part of that was dumb. Every part of it was dumb.
See, there's another element that I want to address here as well, which is the temperature of the human stomach is nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 37.5 degrees Celsius. We don't know what the upward temperature release might be, so what if he swallowed it to activate the upward temperature release? We don't know that that's the case. So for all we know, putting him in the freezer might have neutralized it briefly, but also, do you have any idea how long it takes for a human body core temperature to get down to 5 degrees Celsius?
I don't know the answer to that question. Do you actually know?
I do. I mean, there's a whole bunch of math there that has to do with physics and stuff, but it takes hours for a person's core body temperature to get below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's in the 20s. That's like 18 or 19 degrees Celsius. So we're talking about going from like a third of the way to boiling to 5 degrees away from freezing. That would take hours.
A long time. Yeah, it would take a long time.
Yeah. So yes, there are many absurdities within all of this. And then they cap off this very intense, very loud musical scene with Gibbs saying to the chief of the boat, "Do you know what the most important thing to do now is?" And the cop says, "To put the ice cream back in the freezer."
Okay. Although, that whole area is potentially contaminated with sarin gas.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
The sarin gas was in his body, and they showed, the listener can't see, right? But they showed that his abdomen was swollen, right? Which would indicate that the gas had escaped the container. And they exposed his body by opening up the body bag. You shouldn't eat anything that was in there.
Probably not.
Right.
And also, by taking him out of the freezer, if somehow his body, after they found him dead after, a minute and a half, that's another thing, which is like, can you even suffocate that fast? Unless he was actively holding his breath as he was running through the hallway to pre-suffocate himself, they probably could have found him alive.
Yeah.
Right? So, after all of this chicanery, absolute chicanery, we just cut back to the office.
That's very anticlimactic. They just go back to the office.
They're just back at the office. McGee shows up And he's just walking through, and he's like, hey, I finished my report. And everyone's like, do you not know what email is, you dumbass? Like, you didn't need to come all the way here for it. And he's just like, well, yeah, but I figured I could bring it. And then he just stands there for 2 seconds longer, and Gibbs is like, what are you here for, dude? And he's like, oh, I have a lunch date with Abby. And Tony is like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. Let me walk you down to her. So he guides McGee over to the elevator and is like, man, I just don't know if you guys are, going to get along. And McGee goes, well, you know how you were talking about that urge? And Tony's like, yeah. And McGee goes, I thought about it, and I went with Mom, which leaves Tony with this blank, overwhelmed, shocked face.
So he did get a tattoo.
He got a tattoo that says Mom on his butt. Yeah.
Honest.
And that's the end.
That's the end of the show.
Yep, that's the end of the episode.
And we know, and he becomes a recurring character. Does he become a permanent cast member?
He's still on the show to this day.
To this day, okay. All right.
Yes.
Is Abby still on the show?
No.
Okay, so she left.
Those are the only... Yeah, so she left a few years ago. The thing that I wanted to mention about Agent McGee is that he is played by the nephew of the executive producer of this show.
Oh, okay. That's not a coincidence at all.
Yeah, no.
Do you know anything about his background? Like, did he go to acting school, or...?
I haven't looked. I do not know. But, I mean, he's fine. He's a perfectly serviceable actor.
This episode was pretty stupid.
Yeah.
This was stupid. This was as stupid as The Invincibles.
The Immortals.
The Immortals, that's right. It's that level of stupid. And taking those two episodes in conjunction, the Navy's got to ask itself, why do we keep promoting petty officers these whack jobs? Right?
Uh-huh.
Like the enlisted corps in the Navy, judging from this show, they're insane. They're crazy.
Yeah.
What happened was that someone who had served on a nuclear submarine as a sonar tech, the actual murderer, the one who killed himself, right?
Yes.
He got out of the Navy apparently, okay, and then hatched up a plan with fellow whale enthusiasts.
Uh-huh.
That they were going to slot him in as an imposter back into his old role, but on a nuclear submarine. And in order to do that, they had to locate someone who was serving that role as a sonar technician. They killed him, and they somehow arranged for that person to also be reassigned to the USS Philadelphia. That was why they had someone pre-staged in the personnel department. And so, yeah, I think I'm getting this right. And so
yeah, you are.
The guy tinkered with the paperwork, and so this poor sonar tech that eventually they killed was on another boomer, another submarine, happily doing his thing. And then he was like, oh, I just got reassigned for reasons I have no idea why to the USS Philadelphia. So he goes home to pack up his stuff, and then they kill him.
Yep.
Right? And they're like, all right, now you are gonna assume his identity. And yeah, the person is. You'd have to be a genius to have figured to have arranged all this.
Yeah.
Right.
But what?
You'd have to be a mastermind, and you'd also you'd also have to. This guy got hired into their office personnel management, which would insinuate that there was an opening. Right. So how long did they have to wait until there was an opening? And then he would have to go through a job interview. He would have to have the appropriate back, and presumably they ran a background check on the guy when he went to the work there and so on. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's actually no point in us trying to carve up this plot any further than we already have, because we can just keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is so indescribably stupid that I can't describe it. It's indescribably stupid.
I think the best way that we could describe or understand this episode is this television show and the meaning that it is trying to put into the minds of its viewers is that any form of protest is moments of coordination away from becoming coordinated terrorism.
Yeah.
And that is why we can't let people profess different opinions.
Well, and I'm mindful of the fact that this was filmed, shortly after 9/11.
Yeah.
And at the time, the show clearly wants to conflate people who are protesting an environmental policy by the Defense Department with terrorists.
Yeah.
Period. That's all. That's all they want to do. They want to conflate those two. So it's undermining the noble goal of the military to keep us safe. Well, it was at a time when passions were quite high. People were fearful.
Yeah.
And people thought that they saw terrorists behind every nook and cranny.
Well, the other aspect of it is that if you were a part of this protesting community that is trying to keep wildlife in the seas from the horrific death of having their organs internally exploded by the sonar of submarines, you would be so mad that some moron tried to poison an entire submarine full of people in the Navy.
Yeah.
You would be overwhelmingly mad because you're like, great, now they have a reason to put people that are protesting this policy on a terrorist watch list.
Yes. That's right.
So, like, there are multiple ways of looking at the actions of everyone in this episode, because that is, I mean, clearly that is the way that the writers, the people that are constructing this episode, feel about that kind of person. That they're like, they're not like, oh, these people are only nonviolent because we keep them nonviolent. That is clearly the point they're getting to.
Yeah, it's messed up. It's messed up.
My favorite thing about this, though, is that it's still horrible propaganda.
Yeah.
Which is, its only saving grace is that it's bad at it.
Well, they could have found a more clever way to package the propaganda.
Yeah.
So it's like they didn't really care, almost. Or maybe the writers were given this mandate to, I don't know, I wonder how that worked. I wonder if the writers came up with the idea because they knew that's what the executives wanted. They wanted something like that. Or if the executives said, hey, we need some propaganda. So go write up a plot that helps us with this propaganda.
As we're wrapping up, though, what would you give this in terms of our episode-by-episode made-up rating scale?
Okay, that's a good question. So I always like to choose an element from the show as the unit of measurement. So how about we say this show for me was 2.5 melting bowls of ice cream out of 12.
Damn it, I was thinking of ice cream. But that's okay. 2.5 out of 12. That's not bad. Gosh, I don't know what to think of mine. Okay, no, I think of one. Most of mine are based off of objects that I have that I can visually see on my desk. I'm going to say mine is your grandpa's really old, worn, and overstuffed wallet out of one of those really slim profile wallets that holds like $2 notes and 3 cards. That's what it is. It is old and clunky and useless, and it causes back problems. But whenever you see it, you're kind of like, man, that just reminds me of the past, good or bad.
Yeah, a little bit of nostalgia. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to say that this was an enjoyable experience insofar as I enjoy interacting with you.
Thank you.
The vehicle behind it was not really enjoyable. It was very frustrating, as always. Yeah. And I may have asked you this before, but just before we close, given your experience with this whole volume of knowledge of all these episodes that you've seen, are there any actually good episodes?
That's a real big ask. I think the level that they reach is probably peaked within the first 5 seasons. There are definitely some that get close to good pieces of entertainment, if a little schlocky. But as we talked about in one of the previous episodes, I think I may have cut this discussion out, where we talked about the ratings of different episodes. Every single episode up to now has gotten at least a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I don't know. I'd have to go into the future of the ratings and see which one is rated like really, really low. And if I find out that it's the one that like won an award for best depiction of a queer character, then do you have any idea how surprised I'm not going to be? But I mean, there are also so many more things that will make this show, like I said, it gets so much more cartoony, and it stops taking itself seriously in the way that is different than the way that it is not taking itself seriously now.
Yeah, right now, we're not taking it seriously, but
Yes.
in the future, it sounds like it'll be that it doesn't take itself seriously either.
Yeah, I really don't know if I could tell you if there is a good part about this show, but there is definitely a shift somewhere, and at that shift, I could almost watch it without having to do this podcast. Almost.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm like, oh my God. Like, yeah, I just don't even know what to say. As a way of saying goodbye and a recommendation, you should watch the movie American Gangster, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, and also RZA.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page, 2007. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so...
Well, thank you for that recommendation.
Yeah. With that, our good friends and listeners, I hope you have a very nice day. My name is Robby Thesword.
I am Ashley J. Williams.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.